Hi everyone, welcome. Out here on the bench are my African nightcrawler worm bins that have been in service now for 30 weeks. That's 210 days. And most of my systems that are older than these, that are still active, have been converted over to a phase of their life cycle that I refer to as foraging, or more specifically fed foraging. And that really just means that they're being maintained in such a way that they're getting no new bedding. I'll continue to feed them, but the bedding no longer gets applied. So all the systems that I have that are older than these, let me do this, and I'll explain why in a moment, have been getting no bedding. And I believe that in the case of these systems, since they're 210 days old today, all my other systems were converted to foraging at a younger age. Like I think 199 comes to mind, 170 some odd days, I forget, but to already be at 210 days, I believe makes it one of the older systems into which we'll still be adding bedding as part of the feeding. And starting today, I believe we'll switch them over to be in a foraging state. So one thing really quick, just before it slips my mind, I should have mentioned it before I removed the plastic, but the plastic was a little bit smaller over on this bin, and maybe that's the reason this bin felt a little bit lighter to me. I forget what it was, but it seemed to me like the heavier bin was the one that seemed like it was better protected from evaporation and the loss of moisture. So it seemed to me like if we were to switch them, then I'd be possibly allowing the system that felt heavier to me to have the smaller covering that might allow for a little bit of its moisture to be kicked off through evaporation. So it's funny, right? When you think of evaporation and it's beneficial to have it happen, as would be the case here in bin number 1, I think of it as just kicking off, you know? It's kind of casual, and I'm going to use it to my benefit. And when the evaporation leads to dryness and an uncomfortable, unhealthy environment for the worms, then it's loss. It's moisture loss due to evaporation. So either we're kicking or losing, one way or another. It's moisture being lost from the system due to evaporation. And now I'm starting to bump into some of the bedding that was included with the last feeding. I was pretty generous on the bedding last time. My idea was to try to blend the stuff in as best I can. So for now, I'm just going to do a quick till up of the feeding zone to unearth some of that bedding that's out there, because like I said, this will be the last time we apply bedding, and it's going to be a type of bedding that I assume is going to go pretty quick, which is just more of the same as what they got last time, my prepared bedding, which is shredded cardboard and paper combined with leaves and moisture. So let's, by the way, these systems, I was going to say, let's get into bin number 2 and do the same thing. Yeah, I think I can definitely feel a difference as far as even the moisture content can be felt in the consistency of the material, it seems to. It seems to either hold together really good or it just flakes apart. Okay, so I was about to start mentioning corn cob spheres, of which I think last time too we found only one in bin number 2, and I believe in bin number 1 we've seen no corn cob spheres for some time now. But you know, this could be an opportunity for us to do a quick little search for more of them, because like I said, I want to try to blend in as much as possible this leftover bedding that I unearthed here. Just get it all everywhere throughout the system, all over the place. And then we'll be pretty generous with today's application of bedding too. But now, since we unearthed all this leftover bedding from the last feeding, it's kind of an easy reach to be able to blend it in with all the surrounding materials. So, and you know, if we do bump into corn cob spheres, I suppose I should set them aside. And I thought I had placed the one we already found in here aside, but hopefully we can locate it again. This little joint where all the bananas hang off of, that little part of the bunch where all the bananas connect up. Usually that stem stays with the banana, but in this case the whole bunch must have just spoiled so much that the bananas just fell off that little connector thing. So corncob sphere, I'm going to set this one aside. And I think at this point I'm going to do what I see in other channels sometimes, which is just take the tilling up of the material and spinning it all around and stirring it all together and aerating it in the process. We'll just play that back in fast motion so it doesn't have to be a long, boring thing to be watched. Well, I was about to call it quits in my search for corncob spheres in bin number 1, because it's been so long since I've ever encountered one. Look at that, I just touched it and a little piece of it chipped right off there. So this thing's on the brink of falling apart. So that's a corncob sphere in bin number 1. Unbelievable. But yeah, right back to that topic of moisture. This system definitely could use a little bit of airing out. So I'm glad we aerated it this way. I'm not that interested in seeing the material necessary get drier. Maybe a little bit would be nice, but this stuff is super damp. Coming back over to the bin number 2, this material is nice. So here, look at that. We just found ourselves number 2 corncob sphere over in bin number 2. I don't feel anything here that feels like it's going to want to like hold together. Everything feels like it's prepared to fall apart with just a little bit of, help. Maybe just give it a little nudge or something. And what's this? I'm trying to grow. Here's like the stem of something. It's so small. It somehow makes me think that it could be a piece of a Brussels sprout. So I'm not sure if me sticking my fingernail into it is going to help. The one thing sticking my fingernail into something is almost certain to do is put a hole in the thumb of my glove, so why don't I stop doing that? Alright, so yeah, definitely a lot more moisture in here, but as long as they're going to be working in all that blended in bedding that's everywhere, and then also dealing with some of the new bedding that we're going to give them today, which, like I said, is going to be the last portion they get. Or have I mentioned that? Yeah, well, we're leading into fed foraging after this feeding. So we'll be back in here on a regular basis to make use of this system as a place to do away with kitchen scraps and household waste, but we won't be including any bedding. We'll give them food, but they'll have to work through all the bedding that's already in here and help us end up with a really fine batch of worm castings in here. So another thing that I wanted to bring back was the old feeding zone indicators, because I've got replacements. The feeding consists of cucumber for the most part, but a couple banana peels too. And I just looked at the stuff that they got last time, and other than that, perhaps that little stem of a Brussels sprout that we bumped into there a moment ago, I don't think I saw anything that resembled leftovers from the last feeding. So everything they got last time was stuff that seemed like it would go pretty quickly. So let's see. We already returned, did we? I think we did, right? We put the corncob sphere back in over there, but let's not forget to return these as well. And in can come the coffee. Nice replacement feeding zone indicators. And that's pretty much their feeding. Did I? No, not quite. We're not done with the... There it is. Okay. Corncob sphere. Really, got to be careful. Very fragile one. So yeah, 1.5 cucumbers per system. Plus all that coffee, plus a banana peel. Should make them pretty happy wormies. These cucumbers feel like they got a lot of juice in them. And what the heck? Man, that skin was so frozen it didn't want to give. It wouldn't tear. And there we go. So guess what? Happy Valentine's Day. All right, so here in bin number 2, they get the big flower because they've got the 2 corn cob spheres that have been surviving. And consolation prize for the system in which we found only 1 corn cob is some of these graveyard flowers, or whatever they are. No, I did not raid a cemetery for these, I promise. Alright, so I thought it would be kind of cool to make this feeding almost like a semi-surface feeding, and then just do a little cover of the stuff with a little bit more bedding, and then that would be kind of an interesting little feeding. But we don't want to cover up these cool flowers. I definitely want to be able to see these and how they're coming along when we return to these systems next time. And like I said, at this point they're fed foraging. They're going to be fed foraging from this point forward. So we'll be hoping to see all this bedding that they've received now gradually diminish and vanish over time. And over here in bin number 1, I think there might be a benefit to not only swapping the plastics, you know, putting a slightly smaller one that doesn't extend the entire length of the container on here. So you can see this one does not leave anything uncovered on the 2 far edges. This I think is some sort of a plum pit, if I'm not mistaken. And this one here definitely leaves a little bit of room all the way around itself for moisture to be lost, kicked off, whatever it is. I think this is the way to go. This looks like a good setup, and why don't we leave it at that. So, fed foraging beginning in the 210-day-old African nightcrawler worm bins, with this last application of bedding going in with feeding number 18, I believe it is today, or maybe 19, something in that neighborhood. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.